Hi, I'm Alana. Welcome to another video. In today's video, we're doing a get ready with me for church. So, yesterday, I spent 5 hours on the phone to Microsoft support. Would you believe that? 5 hours talking to Microsoft support. Well, actually, I spent 3 hours talking to Microsoft support, and then 1 hour talking to Apple support, and then 1 hour talking to Microsoft support. And the last lady, I think her name was Divyanshi, she fixed the problem in like 15 minutes. So I feel like everyone I spoke to before her was maybe just incompetent. So yesterday was the worst day of my life. That's being dramatic, but it was a really tough day. So today, the first thing that I would like to do is to recommend you a book, a couple of books actually. So the first book that I would like to recommend to you today is called Fight Like a Girl by Clementine Ford. So I know that a lot of people think that Clementine Ford is just an angry feminist, but I actually really enjoy her books. Like, I've read a few of her books, and I think that she is an extremely talented writer. I think she's very unique in the way she writes, and she's very honest and very vulnerable and very uniquely herself. So this book, Fight Like a Girl, is about basically like modern feminism and all of the things that come with growing up as a girl in today's world, and all of the reasons why we should be mad, but like also she talks very openly and very vulnerably about her experience, like her personal experience growing up as a woman. And like I said, I think she's an extremely talented writer. So yeah, another book by her that I would recommend is called How We Love. So that's Clementine Ford. Now the second book that I would like to recommend to you today is called Envy and Gratitude by Melanie Klein. So it's Envy and Gratitude and Other Works. So these are works that she wrote back in from 1946 to 1963. So Melanie Klein was a psychoanalyst way back in the day, and her work is about Kleinian Object Relations Theory. So object relations theory is basically about how people relate to different objects in their environment and about how that affects their development. Like, you have the good object and you have the bad object. So the good object, the original good object, is the mother's breast. So a child needs to form a secure attachment to a good object. So that could also be like your parents' marriage, or even just like one parent. If you have one solid parent who you feel is like a good object and who you can like trust and rely on, then like that relationship to the good object allows you to believe in goodness and allows you to have like trust in other good objects. Whereas the bad object, so the bad object can be demonstrated by the paranoid-schizoid position, which is when like the bad object, so it's about how you relate to the badness in yourself. Like, the paranoid-schizoid position is when someone externalizes all of the badness in themselves outwards. So like, because you can't face the badness in yourself, you externalize the badness outwards, and so you hate like other people. Like, you hate what you hate in yourself in other people. And so that is called the paranoid schizoid position, because it often results in splitting, where like the ego splits into halves because you've externalized all of the badness that you can't face in yourself outwards. So the ego splits in two, and so that can often lead to psychosis or schizophrenia. That's why it's called the paranoid schizoid position. And then there is also the depressive position. So the paranoid schizoid position relates to threats to the ego, whereas the depressive position stems from threats to the loved object. And then she also wrote about a number of defenses against anxiety, like a number of ego defenses. For instance, she wrote about self-devaluation. So people often like to guard against threats to the ego. People might devalue the other, or they might devalue themselves. So self-devaluation is particularly insidious because when a patient devalues themselves, then they will see the analyst, like the therapist, as above them, and then that breeds like contempt for the analyst. And so that is Kleinian Object Relations Theory. And I'm going to keep explaining it until I fully understand it myself. So what else do we have on the agenda today? Oh yeah, so Soft White Underbelly interviews. I've been listening to, so the other night I listened to one with a fentanyl addicted prostitute who lives on Skid Row. She was talking about like her life and like how she got addicted to fentanyl, and like, so she was living with her boyfriend at the time, and he was like giving her heroin, but then because it wasn't getting her high anymore, he started like secretly cutting it with fentanyl, and now she's like homeless and addicted to fentanyl. And she said something that really like stuck with me. She said, I wish that I had normal problems. Like I wish I had problems like that my car ran out of gas and it broke down and I had to walk a block to work because my car broke down. She said, that sounds like a wonderful problem to have. And I was like, wow, that really like puts things in perspective, right? And it really made me like really appreciative of all that I have, like of my work and my education and my food and shelter. So yeah, I can't remember her name. But then there was another one I listened to with a man who, he was addicted to crystal meth and Xanax, and he is a homeless drug addict who lives on Skid Row. But his story was really interesting because he had actually been hired to work for a producer. So he's friends with a producer, and this producer hired him to teach an actor how to play a homeless drug addict in a movie. So then he spent like several months with this actor teaching him how to play a homeless drug addict in a movie. And I thought that was really fascinating. And he sounded really like stable. Like not stable as in like he wasn't addicted to crystal meth and Xanax and homeless, but like stable as in like he wasn't outwardly crazy apart from like his sunken cheeks and like his visibly homeless look. He seemed like weirdly put together. And yeah. And so, oh yeah, and then I wanted to talk about a man called Seth, who I listened to Seth's interview like a few months ago, about how he was systematically abused by an older man when he was 12, and how he like healed from that. So I listened to that interview with him several months ago, and then this interview was talking about like his life since he has gotten famous, as in that interview got like 1 million views or something. So now he was talking about like his life since then. And this interview was really interesting to me because he was talking about how he is not Christian, like he does not believe in Jesus, he does not believe in God, but somehow he is like relatively healed from his trauma, in that at least it doesn't like choke him up to talk about it, and he's not addicted to drugs or anything like that, and he's got a stable marriage and family. And he was talking about how like he thinks that people shouldn't have to be pressured into believing in God, and how some company like said that they would buy 100 of his books, but then they took back the offer because they found out he wasn't Christian. So a lot of his most recent interview was him talking about how, like, there's too much pressure to be Christian and I just healed without God. And, like, what I think of that is that when you have not known the all-consuming, like, redemptive love of Christ, when you have not known the light, you don't know that you're living in darkness. And so that's all I have to say on that. But I really like Seth. And then, I also wanted to share a quote that I heard the other day. Now, I can't remember where I heard this, but someone said, drinking alcohol to mask anxiety is like taking a loan from the mafia to pay off the bank. And so I really liked that quote. So lately I've been thinking a lot about being cringe, and I realized that, so if you are posting videos every day, as I do, then it's most likely that at some point you will post something cringe. But I realized that the most cringe thing that I could possibly post is ultimately still going to be less cringe than someone who is just hiding in their basement behind their computer screen, posting nasty comments on the internet because they are too afraid to put themselves out there. Don't you think? So, those are all my thoughts for today. Thank you for getting ready with me for church today. You're beautiful. You're perfect. I love you. God bless you. If you're new, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel.